بسم الله عبد الله نمشي. بالله عندك سلك
طويل ولا كيف يعني؟
عادي كنت
ايفون
نسيته. ايوه يعني.
ايفون؟
مم.
ايه بدون شغل.
طيب جزاك الله خير. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. This morning we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for sincerity and for barakah, for acceptance. And we ask Allah the Mighty and the Most High to make this sitting a sitting which is beneficial and a sitting which is successful. Allahumma ameen. The book that I chose for our mudarasa, our study and our review, is a book called Nasihatu Ahl al-Hadith. Nasihatu Ahl al-Hadith. As you can see on the projector, and as it's printed out here. And Abu Abdullah, Sheikh Abbas, Sheikh Abu Salim can share with you the link to the PDF, the scanned book. This is a book that was authored by one of the greatest scholars of Al-Islam and one of the most prolific writers of Al-Islam, especially in the field and the science of Al-Hadith, and that is Al-Khatib Al-Baghdadi rahimahullah, of the 5th century. We don't have the time right now to get into the great and the epic life of Al-Khatib Al-Baghdadi rahimahullah, who he was and what he did for Islam and what he did for the Hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What's important is that he wrote many books, many books and many works, and he did a great deal of service to Islam and to the Sunnah. He lived and he died in the 5th century of the Hijrah. And from those books that he wrote, and from the work that he left behind, from the children and the offspring that he produced that continue to live, his immortal children, as the Salaf would say, إِنَّ عِلْمَ الرَّجُلِ وَلَدُهُ الْمُخَلَّدِ. They said the knowledge of a man is his immortal son. عِلْمُ الرَّجُلِ وَلَدُهُ الْمُخَلَّدِ. The knowledge that you leave behind is your son, your children that never die. You understand what I'm saying? So from his children who continue to live is this book, Nasihatu Ahl al-Hadith. And keep in mind that Khatib al-Baghdadi died in the 5th century. That's almost 1,000 years ago he lived. And we're still talking about him, mentioning his name, and reading from what he wrote down with ink and quill. That's pretty amazing if you think about it. Okay? So the manifestation of that statement, the knowledge that you leave behind is your immortal offspring, your immortal sons, your immortal children. Your name and your legacy, it never dies. Rather, if you produce something of quality and it is sincere for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you have the necessary sharpness, it's something that's only going to get better through and with time. It's only going to get better and more thorough with and through time. As Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala said, when he was asked, لِمَاذَا صَنَّفْتَ الْمُوَطَّأَ وَقَدْ صَنَّفَ النَّاسُ الْمُوَطَّأَاتِ. He says, why are you writing your book, Malik? And there are other scholars who wrote muwatta'as before you. It's a reality. There were scholars that lived during the time of Imam Malik that were either greater than Malik, or equal to Malik, or lesser than Malik. And they had books, and they had madhabs, and they had students, they had madaris. So one of his peers, he asked him, why are you writing your book? He said, مَا كَانَ لِلَّهِ بَاقِي. He says, if it's sincere, it's going to remain. I.e., I'm writing my book for the face of Allah and not for the praise of the people and the acceptance of the people. And I know what Allah has blessed me with, and inshallah ta'ala, my book will withstand the test of time. Well, how can I can? And that's exactly what happened to my Imam Malik's book. All around the world, they study Al-Muwatta. Those who study fiqh and those who study hadith. And the other books of the other ulama and other fuqaha, you barely hear about them on the level that you hear about Imam Malik. Okay? Those who I said who are greater than Malik, أعلم منه وأقعد منه. Those who are greater than him, or those who are similar to him, equal to him, or those who are lesser than him. But Imam Malik's book, no doubt, it remained. Okay? Not saying that those other ulama, the books that they wrote, weren't sincere for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La, hasha. But we're just trying to make a point of, you're reading a book 1,200 years old, 1,300 years old, 1,000 years old. That's a very long time. You know how long of a period of time? 1,000 years. How many people came and went and lived and died? Cities, dynasties, empires. That's a very long time, 1,000 years. Okay, so Khatib al-Baghdadi, rahimahullah ta'ala, he wrote this book, Nasihatu al-Hadith. A few brief points with regards to the book. First and foremost is, the book, in my humble opinion, isn't that well known. And I would call it and consider it a hidden gem. A hidden gem. You take other books of the author, such as Sharafu Ashab al-Hadith, Al-Jami' li Akhlaq al-Rawi, Al-Faqih wal-Mutafaqih, Iqtida' al-Ilm al-Amal. Those books are very well known, Khatib al-Baghdadi. But this this small essay or booklet isn't that well known, and alhamdulillah, I consider it to be a hidden gem. A hidden gem. Alright? So that's first and foremost. Secondly is, why do we choose this book for the talabat al-ilm or al-mutafawwiqeen, the advanced students from among the talabat al-ilm, etc. We're going to read from the introduction of the book, and we're also going to read in another book what Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi rahimahullah ta'ala has to say regarding this topic. And FYI, as they say, it's the book, and for those who want to see it online, Nasihatu al-Hadith. Very important skill set for the student of knowledge, and a very important piece of discipline for the student of knowledge is to always read the introduction to the book. Al-Hirsu ala mutala'ati wa qira'ati al-muqaddimat. There's no book that you buy or you're studying except that you should have read its introduction. And this is something that we find many students of knowledge lacking in. They have volumes upon volumes, and they never even looked into the introduction of the book, let alone read it, let alone understood it. So beware of this. Any book that you have, at least read the introduction. If you're trying to study the book with a sheikh, with an author, if you're getting ijazah or taliq, you must read the introduction. And that's common sense. Sahib al-dari adra bima fiha. The owner of the house knows the house better than anyone else. Before you get to what this sheikh said, and this means this, and he wrote a book like this, let's see what Khatib al-Baghdadi nafsuhu had to say about the book, why he wrote it, who he wrote the book for. And it will prevent you from misunderstandings, from misconceptions, and it will also allow you to realize who's the intended audience of the book. It says here, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, reading from page 229. قال الخطيب أبو بكر أحمد بن علي بن ثابت الحافظ رحمه الله تعالى: رسمت في هذا الكتاب لصاحب الحديث خاصة ولغيره عامة ما أقوله نصيحة مني له وغيرة عليه، وهو أن يتميز عمن رضي لنفسه بالجهل ولم يكن فيه معنى يلحقه بأهل الفضل، وينظر فيما أذهب إليه معظم وقته وقطع به أكثر عمره من كتب حديث رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وجمعه، ويبحث عن علم ما أمر به من معرفة حلاله وحرامه وخاصه وعامه وفرضه وندبه وإباحته وحظره وناسخه ومنسوخه وغير ذلك من أنواع علومه قبل فوت إدراك ذلك. The author, he says, I wrote this book for two types of people. Two types of people. Two types of people. Number one, لصاحب الحديث خاصة, for a person of hadith specifically. So we see and we realize that the book is not geared for every single person. The book is geared, the intended audience initially is for a specific type of person. Number two, he says, وَلِغَيْرِهِ عَامَّةً, and others secondarily. Listen very carefully. The book was primarily written for a specific type of person. But it doesn't mean that others can't take benefit from it. Everyone understand this? And this will prevent you, as I said, from many misunderstandings and misconceptions with regards to books and the kalam of the ulama and benefiting from the ulama, and you understand that this alim didn't write this book for you. This alim did not write this book for English-speaking students. This book was not written for general layman people. It was not written for 2019. He specifically mentioned in the introduction, I wrote it for the people of my country in the 6th century and the 10th century. I wrote this book for other scholars like myself. So you understand, well, how can he put this there? And this is weak, and this is confusing, and this is too long. All this doesn't make any sense because he didn't write it for you. He wrote it for someone else with a certain level of intelligence and understanding. I mean, understand this? Or the opposite. The author clearly mentions that I wrote the book for beginners. I wrote the book for those who are on the basic level. And I did not write the book for those who are advanced. So a person who comes along and says, this book is too easy. It's just simplistic. Oh, this is a baby ABC book. That's because the book was not written for that level. It was written for a different level. So you must read the introduction to the book to understand the style of the book. Al-Khatib, the author, rahimahullah, he says, I only wrote this book to give sincere advice. Sincere advice. And out of jealousy, me feeling bad, and me seeing things that are wrong, and seeing errors and seeing mistakes, and me wanting to fix them. He says, and those who wish to seek the knowledge of the Messenger of Allah, the legacy of the Messenger of Allah, for them to separate themselves and to distinguish themselves in their behavior, just as they've distinguished themselves in their profession. Those who are pleased with just being followers, those who are pleased with just having a little bit of knowledge, those who are pleased with not having that much ilm of the Prophet ﷺ Sunnah, and those who say, no, we want more. We don't want to just be basic and simple. We want more knowledge. So just like they've distinguished themselves in the ilm and talab, they have to distinguish themselves in akhlaq and adab. Everyone understand this? Khatib rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, speaking on how a person spends most of his time studying and learning, all right? And the great responsibility and duty that comes with that. And we know that Khatib al-Baghdadi rahimahullah was a very fluent writer, and he was a very smooth writer. So he basically is saying here that the book was meant as advice to two types of people. The first type of person, or the first is he or she who is a hadith disciple. Someone who is studying ilm al-hadith, khasatan, specifically. What you have to do and what you have to avoid. What you should do and what you should not do. So the book, hypothetically speaking, is not written for a student of the Quran. It was not written for a student of fiqh. It was not written for a student of Lugha al-Arabiyyah. It was not written for someone who specializes in al-Aqidah and Tawheed. The book was not written for Ahlul Sirah. It was only written for al-Mutakhassisin fi ilm al-Hadith. Al-Mushtaghileen bi ilm al-Hadith. Everyone understand this? Primarily. And secondarily, those who study fiqh and seerah and aqidah and this and that, they will also benefit from the book as well. Everyone understand this? And as we have explained many times before, those who are trying to seek the knowledge of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ have to conduct and have to behave a certain way. And they are supposed to be the elite from among the elite. They're supposed to. Are they always like that? Different story. We ask Allah for forgiveness and for protection. Ameen. I would understand this? Khayr, inshallah. That's point number one. Point number two is, it's a very important piece of advice for the student of knowledge, is that not only do you understand the book from the introduction of the book, but you can understand the topic and the subject of the book, the climate of the book, from another work of the same author. Another work of the same author, in which he explains it in a different book with a different style. So we have one author who wrote two books. I'm studying the 20-page book, and I've read the introduction. But the author has a 400-page book, and I may read that introduction too. Or I may take a piece out of that 400-page book to have a better understanding of the 20-page book. Everyone understand this? And knowledge is like a body, a human body. One part leads to another. It's all connected. So you may say, what is the connection between a 30-page book and a 400-page book or a 1,000-page book? They're connected. And oftentimes you can get a better understanding of the 30-page book by going to the 1,000-page book. Everyone understand what I'm saying? Hopefully you guys can get this point. So, the more famous book is Al-Jami' li Akhlaq al-Rawi wa Adab al-Sami'. The author, he says, أما بعد فقد ذكرت في كتابي شرف أصحاب الحديث ما يحدو ذا الهمة على تتبع آثار رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم والاجتهاد في طلبها والحرص على سماعها والاهتمام بجمعها والانتساب إليها ولكل علم طريقة ينبغي لأهله أن يسلكوها وآلات يجب عليهم أن يأخذوا بها ويستعملونها. وقد رأيت خلقا من أهل هذا الزمان ينتسبون إلى الحديث ويعدون أنفسهم من أهله المتخصصين بسماعه ونقله وهم أبعد الناس مما يدعون وأقلهم معرفة بما إليه ينتسبون. يرى الواحد منهم إذا كتب عددا قليلا من الأجزاء واشتغل بالسماع برهة يسيرة من الدهر أنه صاحب حديث على الإطلاق ولما يجهد نفسه ويتعبها في اضطرابه ولا لحقته مشقة الحفظ لصنوفه وأبوابه إلى آخره رحمه الله أو إلى آخر كلامه. He says in the introduction to this book, and then Allahu Akbar, he mentions a third book. Everyone get the concept? From one thing you learn 10,000 things. From one thing you learn other things, and those other things lead back or take you back to the first thing. He mentions a third book, and that is Sharafu Ashab al-Hadith, the nobility of the people of Hadith. He says in that book, I have explained the virtue of studying the Hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ and the excellence of devoting yourself to the ilm of the Sunnah. We explained that. He says, and a person working hard and sacrificing himself for that, sacrificing his time and his life for that. And he says, in every science, there is etiquette. There's a mode of behavior that you have to stick to. Listen to these words. Every field, there is a culture. There's a culture, there's a code of honor that you have to abide by. We talk about basketball as a sport. Basketball also has a culture. And there are rules and there are do's and don'ts that you must have if you want to be a serious basketball player. Do's and don'ts. Everyone understand this? Ilm, there are do's and don'ts. The Quran, you want to be a Quran reciter, there are do's and don'ts. There's an etiquette, there's behavior, there's a mode of conduct that you must respect and stick to. He says here, وَآلَاتٍ, and there are tools of the trade that you have to be familiar with. Now, the main point is, he says, and he lived in the 5th century, he says, I've seen many people who study hadith, they learn hadith for a short period of time. A small period of time. And then they puff out their chests. And they stick out their chests. And they hold their heads high. And they think and they say, they claim, I'm Ahlul Hadith. I'm a student of knowledge. I'm following the Salaf al-Salih. I'm upon the ilm and you're not. I'm upon the Sunnah and you're not. And the brother, he just went overseas and came back in the summer. He just went to Egypt for 6 months and he came back. He just went to Yemen for 2 years and he came back. And everyone else is misguided, is astray, is ignorant, and he is the only one who has the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nobody else. This is over 1,000 years, almost 1,000 years old he's saying this. So imagine now in 2019. People who have they begin to study hadith, burhatan, this is a small period of time, and then they puff out their chests and they don't behave in a necessary manner. To simplify things, brothers and sisters, what am I trying to say? Is that this book, Nasihatu Ahl al-Hadith, he wrote to fix the problems and the shortcomings and the flaws of those who are studying and learning hadiths. I.e., he saw something very wrong. It's messed up. It's not how it's supposed to be. What these people are doing today, how they conduct themselves and behave, how they carry themselves, isn't right. Even though they are tulab of hadith. Are you understand this? They've learned some things, they've studied some things, they claim to be upon the sunnah, but something is seriously wrong with what they're doing. And he wanted to warn them from this. And that's because he knows that the outcome is going to be horrible. When there's a religious person, a studious person, a young Muslim who's not behaving properly, not conducting him or herself properly, not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they're claiming the religion and orthodoxy and ilm and ahl sunnah and the salaf, is going to be chaos and havoc. And it's going to be an excuse for the sinful Muslims, and an excuse for the ignorant Muslims, and an excuse, of course, for the non-Muslims. The first thing they're going to say is, well, why do I have to do the right thing? And look at Sheikh Quran, look what he does. Look at his wife, how she's dressing. Look at his children. My children have to do the ta'feed. My wife doesn't have to cover up. Look, he's the imam and his wife dressed like that. Look at his home. We went over his house. This is what we saw over his house. Why should I go overseas to Medina and all of the brothers that come back from Medina and look what they do with each other? They fight and they argue and they refute each other. Everyone get the point? It's going to cause chaos and havoc. The representatives of Islam, the representatives of Allah, the ambassadors of Allah, those who say this is what Allah says and this is the rule and the law of Allah, if they don't have the proper etiquette and behavior, who will? So this is why he wrote the book, to give advice, and because he was upset and he had jealousy for the deen, is that what these people are doing is not correct, and it's destroying the deen and the legacy of seeking the hadith. Everyone understand this? So that is why he wrote the book, and that is why I chose to read the book with you guys. Everybody clear on this? And this is extremely important and extremely dangerous. If Khatib lived in Iraq and Baghdad in the 5th century and he said that, what would he say if he walked down the street in what? Minnesota? If he walked into the Marakas and the masjids, what would Khatib al-Baghdadi say if he got on the internet? Billah alayk. Abu Sayyid, what would he say? If he saw the forums and articles and the websites from the graduates and those who have studied and learned, what would he say? What book would he write then? And this was almost 1,000 years ago in Iraq. How many scholars lived there? How much ilm was there? How many kuffar were there? How much fisk and disobedience was there? And that's what he said. So imagine what? In 2019. So therefore, seeking knowledge systematically, seeking knowledge progressively, studying, having longevity, you need the proper guidance and the proper instruction. And that is why we have this book here with us today. Everyone clear on this? Khair, inshallah. Before we get into the book, an important point here is ما المقصود بكلمة أهل الحديث أو باصطلاح أصحاب الحديث. من هم أصحاب الحديث؟ من هم أهل الحديث? When we say the people of hadith, أصحاب الحديث, what's meant by that? What is meant by that? Many people, of course, they have confusion with regards to these terminologies or this terminology, and to keep things brief and simple, we say that this term is going to be used for one or two meanings. One and or two meanings. All right, number one, is a technical meaning. And number two is a general meaning. As far as the technical meaning, when we say Ahlul Hadith, Ashabul Hadith, then as I've just explained, we're talking about Muslim students of knowledge and scholars who focus on studying the sciences of Hadith. So that includes those who study Sahih Bukhari, Nukhbat Fikr, Ba'ath al-Hadith, Fiqh Sunnah, etc. And that excludes the Qur'an. The Qur'an, it excludes them. It excludes them. One who went to this university overseas and he studied the Qira'at. And he specializes in the Qira'at. This Qira'at, that Qira'at, that does not what? Include him. And he's not from Ashab al-Hadith or al-Hadith. Understand this? One who goes overseas and he studies in Jami'at al-Imam, or he studies in al-Qura, and he's a specialist of fiqh. He's a specialist in the Hanbali fiqh. He has a virtue, he has a status, but he is excluded from this usage. He's laysa min Ahl al-Hadith wa Ashab al-Hadith. I would understand this? A brother who went to the college of Hadith and studied Hadith, but he came back to the United States and he stopped studying it. He stopped practicing it. He only teaches Aqidah, that's it. He only talks about Aqidah, that's it. And he says the people in Minnesota, they only need Aqidah. They don't need Hadith, they need Aqidah, that's it. هو ليس من إيش؟ أصحاب الحديث أبدا. أصحاب الحديث هم المشتغلون بالحديث. Those who busy themselves with it. That's the first meaning, the first usage. Clear this? Meaning number two, or usage number two, من كان على عقيدة الإسلام. العقيدة الصحيحة الصافية الأصيلة is the Islam, the creed of Islam, which is correct, which is orthodox. The creed of Islam, which is organic, before the people started using preservatives and dyes and additives and pesticides. The pure orthodox creed of Islam, even though he or she has learned and studies and teaches the Qira'at. A person is all about fiqh. That's all I study, that's all I teach. It's fiqh Hanbali, fiqh Shafi'i. A person is a specialist of seerah. We say that person, inshallah, min أصحاب الحديث أو أهل الحديث هو يعني على عقيدة أهل الحديث وإن لم يكن متخصصا ولا مشتغلا بإيش؟ علم الحديث. فهمتم? Even though he doesn't stay busy and he's not a specialist in the sciences of hadith. Everybody clear this or not? And this making this differentiating between the two, once again, it will save you from a great deal of confusion and contradiction. And I hope that the brothers and sisters can pay attention and notice last night and today and in many of our classes, we always try to nurakiz, place a great deal of attention on al-ibti'ad an al-khalt, al-ibti'ad an al-tasawwur al-khati fi al-masail al-ilmiyya, is that beware of mixing apples and oranges. Don't mix apples and oranges. Stay away from confusion. And not having a proper definition or the proper usage is a major ingredient to people being confused and people leading others into confusion. And there lies no doubt. Go on YouTube for 5 minutes. You go on the internet for 5 minutes. Type in this word, al-hadith, ashab hadith, aqidah, this, that, salaf salih, and you'll find a great deal of what? Confusion. And we're not talking about layman people. You'll find people who are learning, supposedly, anfusahum. They have a great deal of confusion. وَلَيْسَ عِنْدَهُمْ وَتَصَوُّرُ الصَّحِيحِ. So beware of that. Khayr, inshallah. So therefore, Ahl al-Hadith or Ashab al-Hadith, and also we have synonyms of this term, such as what? What's the synonym of Ahl al-Hadith? Ahl al-Sunnah, or Ahl al-Athar, or Firqa al-Najiyah, Ta'ifa al-Mansura, As-Salafiyun, Ansar al-Sunnah, Ashab al-Sunnah, Ashab, وهكذا, different terminologies. And the same can apply as well. Everyone clear this or not? So a person is a faqih, He's a قارئ مقرئ. ليس عنده كبير اشتغال بالحديث، لكن عقيدته واتباعه وسلوكه وهكذا. Understand this? And you have someone else who doesn't know other qira'at. He only knows qira'ah hafs. That's it. And that's all I want to know. I don't want to study warsh. ليس لي حاجة إلى ذلك. My day and my night is in Tirmidhi, Musnad Ahmad, Muwatta Malik. That's what I deal with. التخاريج, علم الرجال. أنا متخصص في علم الحديث. Of course, he has the correct aqidah, the correct suluk, and the correct madhab. Ahlul Hadith. Everyone understand this? So it's give or take a little. طيب. Now we rahimahullah ta'ala, he says in commenting on the different narrations regarding al-firqatul najiyah, al-taifatul mansura. Who are they? He says, وَأَمَّا هَذِهِ الطَّائِفَةِ فَقَالَ الْبُخَارِي هُمْ أَهْلُ الْعِلْمِ وقال أحمد بن حنبل إن لم يكونوا أهل الحديث فلا أدري من هم. قال القاضي عياض إنما أراد أحمد أهل السنة والجماعة ومن يعتقد مذهب أهل الحديث. قال النووي ويحتمل أن هذه الطائفة مفرقة بين أنواع المؤمنين، منهم شجعان مقاتلون، ومنهم فقهاء، ومنهم محدثون، ومنهم زهاد، وآمرون بالمعروف وناهون عن المنكر، ومنهم أهل أنواع أخرى من الخير، ولا يلزمهم أن يكونوا مجتمعين بل قد يكونون متفرقين في أقطار الأرض. انتهى كلامه رحمه الله. No, he says what other ulama said regarding this saved sect. The Muslims that would never ever go astray when everyone else goes astray. When other people are scared and afraid, when other people are distracted, when other people have been picked off by the enemies of Islam, to water it down and to shave it down and to trim it and to tailor it to make Islam into some beautiful, accepted, politically correct thing. Those people who will remain steadfast no matter what. It doesn't matter, they remain steadfast. He quotes Imam al-Bukhari and quotes Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal and how they said that they are the people of Hadith. And if they're not the people of Hadith, then I have no idea who they are. والمقصود بهم أهل الحديث إيش؟ التعريف أو الإطلاق الأول ولا الثاني؟ الأول المشتغلين بالحديث. هذا المقصود. هذا المقصود في هذا الكلام. إن لم يكونوا أهل الحديث يعني أصحاب طلب الحديث فلا أدري من هم. عرفت كيف؟ طيب. He says here that others they say that was meant by this group that will remain steadfast and orthodox are those who have the madhab of Ahlul Hadith, meaning those who remain organic. Moving forward, now he says, these people from the believers, they can be brave warriors. From them are scholars. From them are people of Hadith. From them are ascetics, zuhad, those who enjoy the good, forbid the evil, etc. i.e. the itlaq al-thani. بغض النظر عن إيش؟ التخصص. توجهك الآن إلى الزهد والرقائق، وتوجهي إلى القراءة، وتوجهه هو إلى السيرة، وتوجهه هو إلى كذا. لكن كلنا عقيدتنا وسلوكنا وعبادتنا كلها عرفت كيف؟ الإطلاق الثاني للإطلاق إيش؟ الأول. فرجح أن القول الصحيح في هذه المسألة أن كلمة طائفة منصورة الفرقة الناجية تشمل كل هؤلاء بغض النظر وبغض الطرف عن التخصص والتوجه. أما كلام أحمد وكلام البخاري فهو منصب على إيش؟ التخصص والتوجه. إن لم يكونوا أهل الحديث فلا أدري من هم. فهمتم؟ انتبهوا. طيب, moving forward. We don't want to spend too much more time on that. Let's get started with the book بإذن الله تعالى. ولكن however هذه المقدمات مهمة جدا غاية. These introductions and these principles are extremely important, especially in 2019, and which is a great deal of iddia, claiming, and a great deal of confusion. طيب, so we have a volunteer to start reading the book, inshallah ta'ala. Any volunteers? Start reading. It's a book, guys. It's nothing to be scared of. It's not going to bite you. Wallahi. Inshallah. No volunteers to read the book. Khairan inshallah. I guess I'm the lucky one. It says here, فقد أخبرنا أبو الحسن محمد بن أحمد بن زرقوية قال حدثنا محمد بن أحمد بن إسحاق بن إبراهيم السرخسي قال حدثنا محمد بن المنذر الهروي قال حدثنا الحسن بن عامر النصيبي أو النصيبي قال سمعت أحمد بن صالح يقول قال الشافعي تفقه قبل أن ترأس فإذا ترأست فلا سبيل إلى التفقه. قال أخبرنا عبيد الله بن أبي فتح الفارسي قال أخبرنا عمر بن أحمد بن عثمان الواعظ قال حدثنا موسى بن عبيد الله بن يحيى قال حدثني عبد الله بن أبي سعد قال حدثني أبو محمد المروزي قال كان يقال إنما تقبل الطينة الختم ما دامت رطبة، أي أن العلم ينبغي أن يطلب في تراوة السن. قال وجاء عن أمير المؤمنين عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه أنه قال تفقهوا قبل أن تسودوا. أخبرناه علي بن محمد بن عبد الله المعدل قال أخبرنا إسماعيل بن محمد الصفار قال حدثنا سعدان بن نصر قال حدثنا وكيع عن ابن عون وأخبرنا محمد بن أحمد بن الرزق قال أخبرنا عثمان بن أحمد الدقاق قال حدثنا حمد بن إسحاق قال حدثنا بكار بن محمد قال حدثنا عبد الله بن عون وأخبرنا حسن بن أبي بكر قال أخبرنا أبو سهل أحمد بن محمد بن عبد الله بن زياد القطان قال حدثنا محمد بن غالب بن حرب وأخبرنا أبو الفرج محمد بن عمر بن محمد الجصاص قال أخبرنا أحمد بن يوسف بن خلاد العطار قال حدثنا أحمد بن علي هو الخزاز قال حدثنا هوذا عن ابن عون إلى آخره. Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi rahimahullah, he wrote this book like he wrote his other books, musnadan mahshuwatan bil athari wal riwayat. He wrote this book upon the old style, the original style, and that was everything that you quote has to be backed with a sanad. You have to have a chain of narration. I heard from such and such, who heard from such and such, who heard from such and such, that Shafi'i said this. انظر يسند عن الشافعي فما بالك بقول الصحابة وتابعين فضلا عن النبي الكريم عليه الصلاة والسلام. يسند عن Shafi'i. Everything that he said, he quoted with a chain of report. And this is extremely important in 2019. Where are you getting this information from? Where did you hear Sheikh Fulan say this? Tafaddal. Where? A brother was mentioning that he heard from one of the students of the Sheikh who said that he was sitting with the Sheikh in his house and Jazakallah khairan. Shukran. Please close the door on your way out. There's no need for us to listen to what you have to say. If you don't have an authentic chain, let alone what this Sheikh or this brother said, is it a hujjah or not? Besides the point, you don't even know where you're getting your information from. You're taking from a second, third hand, fourth, fifth person with a translation. And this was cut out, and this was edited, and this was trimmed. Jazakallahu khairan. Please close the door on your way out. Everyone understand this? And there lies no doubt, if we use this standard, we could for sure minimize the khilaf. We can minimize it if we use this standard. Everyone in this room, whatever you have to say, you gotta prove it. Look, last night, or any other class, I say, mention a ruling, give me a benefit, what did the need? How many hands do you think want to go up? Some will go up. Like in aqal, if I just said, tell me this, what's the definition of that? When you have a standard to go by, you minimize, you can weed out the other things. And then you can selectively look at the flowers. But you have a garden full of weeds. It's going to take longer. It's going to be more burdensome to find a good flower. You understand this? So look at non-Muslims and they talk about Islam. Where did you get this from? Where's this hadith from? The Prophet did this, and the Prophet killed this person, and the Prophet took this person as a captive. Where are you getting that from? Where? Do you read Arabic? Did you read Sahih Bukhari yourself? No, you did. You're taking from a second hand, third hand, fourth hand translation. Everyone understand this? So we have 20 people arguing and fighting from among the Muslims, or from among the non-Muslims. if we use the standard of isnad, we can minimize it to only 5 people differing. And 5, of course, is a better number than what? 20. Everyone understand this? So he wrote the book with the chains of narration. So bidnillah ta'ala, we're not going to read the whole entire book, but we're going to take waqafats from the book. Al-Waqfatul Ula is the first athar, and it's a statement of Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, who said, Tafaqqa qabla an tar'as. He says, get knowledge before you become a leader. Get knowledge before you become a head. Listen to these words, golden words of advice. Learn, study, memorize, go overseas before you become an imam, before you become a husband, before you become a wife, before you become a leader of a markaz, before you run a dawah organization. You want to be from Ahlul Hadith, inshallah. You want to be upon the way of Ahlul Hadith. Listen to these words. The first principle to be from Ahlul Hadith, inshallah, is to have knowledge. So those who claim to be upon the way of Ahlul Hadith and to give da'wah and to call to Islam and to give the people the kalam of the ulama, where did you study at, brother? That's what you hear. You hear what? Sukut, silence, because a person never studied anywhere. So how, billah alayk, how can you be from Ahlul Hadith and you're going against the very first piece of advice? And that is, don't give da'wah and have a da'wah organization and you didn't study anywhere. That makes no, what? Sense. Now you may ask the question, why? Why should a person seek knowledge before he takes authority? Why can't I be a leader first and then learn later on? What's the wisdom behind that? It says here, in the Hawamish, he says here, وقد صح عن السلف قال والمعنى من ذلك أنه متى أصبح طالب العلم رأسا أو سيدا منعه ذلك من تحصيل العلم كيف لا وللترس والسيادة تبعات كثيرة. هذا من جهة، ومن جهة أخرى فقد يصيبه النظر العامة أو من ليس له دراية بالعلم إليه بالتقدير والتمكين والسمع والطاعة بالغرور والتكبر فيستكبر أن يسأل غيره من أهل العلم عما قد يتعناه من المسائل والأحكام. He says this means is that when a student of knowledge becomes a leader, becomes a head, it will prevent him from learning and studying. You can't study and learn anymore. And that's because when you're a leader, you have many responsibilities. Many responsibilities. You want to study, but there's no more time to study because I have to do this class, and I have to answer this question, and I have to go here, and I have this follower, and this person, and that lecture, and this conference, etc., etc., etc. So if you only study for 6 months, or 2 years, or 3 years, or however much time you studied, when are you going to finish your studies? So that's dangerous. And he saw that there were people during his time, almost 1,000 years ago, that took leadership before they had studied. What would Khatib al-Baghdadi say about 2019? The United States, the UK. How many leaders of centers and dawah organizations, and they haven't studied what? Anything. And when that question is brought up, you hear crickets. Like we just said. Nothing can be said about a person's scholastic resume. That's a problem. The second wisdom why this is not to be done, he says, is that when a person becomes a leader, and people look towards him, and people congratulate this person, and they sing and they clap behind him, all hail this leader, mashallah, mashallah. Now something affects him, and he may become conceited, he may become arrogant, he may become big and above asking the people who actually have the knowledge when an issue comes up. And this is especially relevant to dawah. So we live in a time and an age, and this is about no hatred, not hating anyone. This is about the truth. We have many people who speak and talk, and they weren't educated. And they say how I came to Islam. I used to be a rapper, right, on YouTube. Or a woman says I used to be a supermodel. Or I used to be a gang member. Or I used to be a Christian priest. Or I used to be this, and I used to be a pastor. And they tell their story on how they became a Muslim. And how Christianity led them to Islam. And how being in a gang and being a famous rapper led them to being a Muslim. That's a beautiful thing, wallahi. And that's something that can inspire many people, whether that had helped. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem comes in which city to city, state to state, country to country, form to form, venue to venue, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people listening to you and following you. Don't you think, or don't think that those people are just going to listen to your story about Islam. No. They're now going to ask you other questions. And they're going to have other inquiries. And they're going to look to you and call you Sheikh, not just Brother Fulan who's a speaker. The people will go over the boundaries. And oftentimes, you may become so popular and too popular that you cannot tell the people that you don't know. No speaker wants to tell his audience what? I don't know. That's difficult. And it's embarrassing. So therefore you may, make ijtihad a little bit. Or you may be too shy to say no, and you may say something that's wrong. Or you don't answer the question, but instead of finding out, you can't ask and you can't find out because I'm such a famous and prominent speaker about Islam. So I can't come to some measly student of knowledge and say, hey, I was asked one day about wiping over dress socks. Can I do that? Because you're going to look stupid if you ask that question. You're a celebrity. You're not going to ask these basic things. So it's a danger of seeking leadership and taking leadership before a person has obtained fiqh. So this is the first piece of what? Of advice to Ahl al-Hadith. If you're self-respecting and you want to be from among these people, that's the very first thing that you have to do. Khairan insha'Allah ta'ala. Moving forward to the next athar. The next athar says, Kana yuqalu. It used to be said, the wisdom of the ancients, that إنما تقبل الطينة الختم ما دامت رطبة. Is that you can't make the impression in the clay. You can't design the clay pot or the vase unless the clay is what? Wet and moist. Unless the clay is wet and moist. I would understand this, making pottery. It has to be what? Wet and moist. Blowing glass. It has to be a certain temperature. And if it gets too cool and the glass becomes solid, you can't manipulate and fabricate the glass anymore. Everyone understand this? So I'm making a vase and I want to put some decoration on the vase. I want to inscribe my name in it. I can't do it after the clay has been what? Spun and dry. But it can only be done when the clay is still what? Soft and wet. This means, the second piece of advice is that if you want to be from Ahl al-Hadith, you have to study when you are young. You have to study when you're young. So this piece of advice obliviates and wipes out and annihilates those who say, I'm going to go to college for 4 years, study medicine, study this, and then I'm going to go to Medina. I'm 18 now, I'm going to go to Medina when I'm 22. I'm 17 now, I'm going to go to Medina after I finish my law degree or my business degree for my father. Then I'm going to go overseas and study. 22 is still young, alhamdulillah, no doubt about that. 23 is still young, but it's not like 18. And it's not like 17. Let alone when you're 30 or when you're 40. I want to make a business, I want to make money, I want to get married, I want to do this, then I'm going to go overseas and study. That's wrong. Rather, the clay can only be fashioned when it's still what? Soft and wet. And that is your mind, ya akhi. You can only memorize the Quran and Sahih Bukhari and learn fiqh and specialize in it when your mind is soft and wet. But when it's hard and dry, it's difficult. Because you have a wife who demands time. You have children who demand what? Time. You have bills that demand money, time to pay off those bills. Let alone your body isn't the same and your mind isn't the same. And the same applies to sports. The wide world of sports. You can play basketball as much as you want when you're 30 and 40, but it's not the same as when you come out of high school and college. Your knees aren't the same. right? Your ankles aren't what? The same. The time that it takes for you to develop into that player, to get that savvy with that jump shot, it takes what? That may take 10 years. It takes 10 years for you to develop into that championship pedigree. So you can't start when you're late. So that's the next piece of advice to the people of Hadith, is that you have to seek knowledge at a young age. So if you want to do it and you're young, there is no better time than the present. Moving forward. Athar number 3 is reported from Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. It says, Tafaqahu qabla an tasudu. Seek knowledge before you become leaders. Seek knowledge before you become leaders. And that's similar to the previous athar. And the scholars, they mention another piece of wisdom here. And they say, وَبَعْدَ أَن تَسُودُوا, to seek knowledge before and after you become a leader. Type. Moving forward, athar number 4, it says, لَنْ يَزَالَ النَّاسُ بِخَيْرٍ مَا أَخُذُوا الْعِلْمَ عَنْ أَكَابِرِهِمْ فَنَأْتَاهُمْ مِنْ أَصَاغِرِهِمْ فَقَدْ هَلَكُوا. قال أبو عبيد وفي الأصاغر تفسير آخر بلغني عن ابن المبارك. طيب. They mention here the athar of Saghir and Kabir. Saghir and Kabir. Literal translation, big and little. Big and little. And or old and young. And these athar, they warn knowledge to come from those who are small and those who are young, instead of coming from those who are big and those who are old. A phenomenon in which the older people don't have the knowledge, and the knowledge only comes from the youth and only the youth, and things become topsy-turvy. And the scholars of Islam, they explain this by saying is that people have problems, and if we can minimize these personal problems, we've achieved a greater goal. What did Heraclius or Hirakal say to the Prophet ﷺ? Or what did he ask about the Prophet? He asked Abu Sufyan. He says, what is this man's lineage? What's his genealogy? Is he low-born or is he high-born? Right? وَكَذَلِكَ الرُّسُلُ. He says, and that was the case of the messengers. Allah, God Almighty, He sends the messengers from the cream of the crop, the best of society. And that is because people want an excuse not to listen. Everyone understand this? They want an excuse not to obey. So therefore, we have a young person on the minbar or a young person teaching the class. I don't want to sit in the class. I'm stubborn. I really don't want to have to hear what he has to say. So an easy and convenient excuse is for me to say he's too young to teach me. Or, who's this guy talking? His father's a fisherman back home. His father's a fisherman. His father's nobody noble. He doesn't come from no high household. So that is an excuse for me not to listen. Even though the son of this poor fisherman is speaking the what? The haqq. But because of my nafs, I now make an excuse not to listen to him. But I can't say that of the son of a great scholar, the son of a great warrior, the son of a great businessman. Everyone understand this? He comes from a wealthy, high-born family in Somalia. It's one less excuse that I can make not to listen to him. Everyone understand this? So when a person is young or small, the other interpretations, such as a person being foolish, such as a person not having that much knowledge, or such as a person being upon innovation. They mentioned Ahlul Bid'ah. Someone being upon innovation, he's Saghir. It is not min al-akabir. That is a destruction of the legacy of Islam. When these Saghir people have the knowledge, we have a fool, a rambling, babbling fool, a Safi, talking and hollering and screaming, being the leader. I don't want to call out people's names, or talk about no one specifically, but there are many, many, many hollering fools that have never studied, that have never benefited, and they are the leaders of the people. The leaders of the people. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. When the leader has no knowledge, has no wisdom, and or if the leader is young, and if the leader is small, this is going to give the people an excuse not to follow the truth. Everyone understand this? So it's a very important piece of advice. The next fa'idah, it says here, قال الخطيب ولا يقتنع بأن يكون راويا حسب ومحدثا فقط. The next piece of advice, the author, he says that the student of hadith, he should never just aspire to memorize. He should never aspire just to be a rawi, but he should aspire to having knowledge and fiqh. And that is al-jam'u bayn al-riwaya wa diraya. So the next piece of advice for the people of hadith and for the disciple of hadith is not just to memorize, but to understand. And not just to understand, but to actually also tahfadh. Are we understand the difference here? So combining both. I've memorized 40 hadith al-Nawawi, and I know the sharh like the back of my hand. And not just I know the sharh, but I didn't memorize. Do both. So a complete student of knowledge and a complete disciple of hadith is he or she who has made hifth, and he or she who has the what? The fiqh. Are we understand this? So you have to have both. Moving forward. The next piece of advice is similar to what he mentioned before. It says Istiftah al-Kabir al-Saghir on page 246. Page 246. An older person asking a younger person. Then on page 251, it says الندم أو الندم على التفريط في الطلب فإن أدركه التوفيق من الله عز وجل وسأل الفقيه لم يأمن أن يكون بحضرة من يضرب به ويلومه عن عجزه في مقتبل عمره إذا فرط في التعليم فينقلب حينئذ واجما على ما سلف من تفريطه نادما. حدثني أبو طاهر محمد بن إسحاق أنها وندي قال حدثنا الحسن بن عبد الرحمن بن خلاد قال حدثنا عبد الله بن أحمد بن معدان قال حدثنا أحمد بن حرب الموصلي قال سمعت محمد بن عبيد يقول جاء رجل وافر اللحية إلى الأعمش فسألوا عن مسألة من مسائل الصبيان يحفظها الصبيان فالتفت إلينا الأعمش فقال انظروا إلى لحيته تحتمل 4000 حديث ومسألته مسألة الصبيان. The next piece of advice is for a person to beware of losing his or her life without gaining any real knowledge. It's having regret. Think of all the time that you wasted. Dang, subhanAllah. 10 years went by, what did I get? 20 years went by, what did I do? All of that kalam, all of those lectures, all those brothers, but what did I get? I wasted my youth, and I didn't seek any ilm. But I'm still alive. There's some time for me to fix something. Now, I'm not going to go to the NBA, but I can play in the amateur league, right? I can do something. I can coach high school. I can coach middle school. I can try to fix what I wasted. You understand this? He mentions an athar here, Al-A'mash, rahimahullah. Listen to this, it's unfortunate. He says that one day a man came to Al-A'mash, wafirul lihya. And subhanAllah, look at the 5th century verses 2019. A man came with a very big beard. And he asked him a question. And the question was very simplistic, or as we would say, a stupid question. As we would say, a stupid question. Meaning that he asked a question that nobody of his age and his appearance should be ignorant of. So Al-A'mash, listen to what he said. He said, انظر إلى لحيته تحتمل 4000 hadith. He says, look at the man's beard. His beard alone should carry 4,000 hadiths. Huh? His beard should do what? With that size beard, you should have known 4,000 hadiths. He says, and he asks such a stupid, simple question that children know. Meaning, the man with the big beard, he grew a long beard, but he never ever what? Sought the ilm. لم يطلب العلم حال الصغر. طيب, moving forward, he then talks about on page 252, وليعلم أن الإكثار من كتب الحديث وروايته لا يصير بالرجل فقيها إنما يتفقه باستنباط معانيه وإنعام التفكر فيه. هكذا إنعام. ولعل الصواب الله أعلم هل الصواب إمعان والله أعلم. إمعان التفكر، إمعان النظر. Wallahu alam. He says here is that the next piece of advice is don't think just because you memorize hadiths that you're going to have fiqh of those hadiths. But you must learn usul al-fiqh, and you must learn and study fiqh. The iron triangle, as we say, quote unquote. All three, hadith, fiqh, and usul. Everyone understand this? And we should learn how to extract and how to deduce. How do we get the halal and the haram from the narrations? It's a very important piece of advice. Moving forward to page 254. Let's go to 255. Similar, al-jam'u bayna al-hadithi wa fiqh. Page 259. Al-talabu ala al-mashayikh. قال رحمه الله: ولا بد للمتفقه من أستاذ يدرس عليه ويرجع في تفسير ما أشكل عليه ويتعرف منه طرق الاجتهاد وما يفرق به بين الصحة والفساد. وقد أخبرنا أبو الفتح عبد الكريم بن محمد بن أحمد بن القاسم المحامدي قال حدثنا عمر بن أحمد بن عثمان المروذي أو المروذي قال حدثنا الحسين بن أحمد بن صدقة قال حدثنا أحمد بن أبي خيثمة قال أخبرني سليمان بن أبي شيخ قال أخبرني بعض الكوفيين أنه قال قيل لأبي حنيفة رحمه الله في المسجد حلقة ينظرون في الفقه فقال لهم رأس قالوا لا قال لا يفقه هؤلاء أبدا. He says the next piece of advice, which is extremely important, is that when it comes to learning the fiqh of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, you must have a teacher. You cannot be self-taught. Advice to students of knowledge and to people of hadith is not to be self-taught. Your book can't be your teacher. Let alone Sheikh, Google, طيب بكل الاحترام والتقدير. No disrespect to Sheikh Google, right? Sheikh Google is what? No doubt about that. علامة Google, أرى أن كلمة الشيخ جوجل فيه يعني نقص لحقه, طيب المهم, you say Sheikh Google, me personally, I don't see a problem with that word, and I don't see it mean a means of disrespect. It's يعني لا مشاحة في الاصطلاح, والله أعلم. المهم, he says that you have to have a teacher, someone that you read upon, someone that you read to, someone whom you ask questions when there's problematic issues, and someone whom you can learn the proper way of doing it and not doing it. The right way from the wrong way. Simple layman terms, Hadith disciple cannot be self-taught. If you're not going overseas, learn where you are. If you can't learn from someone, call them, contact them. But you can't be absolutely self-taught. He mentions an athar here of Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, that he was asked about a halaqa, or halqa, a circle in the masjid. Students of knowledge, they were sitting around. They were reading and studying fiqh. Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, هَلْ لَهُمْ رَأْسٌ? Is there a leader? Is there someone in charge of this halqa? He said, no. Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, he says, they'll never get fiqh. They'll never learn if they don't have any type of structured leadership when it comes to learning and studying. Khairan, inshallah. Moving forward, he mentions many narrations as well with regards to this concept. يعني that's all we wanted to mention بإذن الله تعالى من هذه الرسالة المختصرة وهذه النصيحة يعني الموجزة with regards to advice to the people of hadith specifically, and with regards to advice to the tullab wal ilm generally. Last but not least, all of these pieces of advice for those who are students of knowledge, for people who are watching and listening, they are also tools for the layman, for the most commonly asked question, who do I learn from? Who do I study from? Who's upon the haqq? What do you think about this speaker? What do you think about that speaker? What do you think about this website? Use these principles. Ask yourself the question, this speaker, man shaykhuhu, this speaker, what has he learned? What has he studied? What is his knowledge-based resume? You understand this? This speaker, young or old, is there someone older than him, with more knowledge than him, with more experience than him? You understand this? This speaker, is he a leader before he studied? وهكذا. So we understand indirectly, listen very carefully to these words, brothers and sisters, every single piece of advice for the actual scholar or student of knowledge is a means of protection for the layman. The people that you should not study with, you should not learn from, are those that you don't see implementing these points. I would understand this? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. We ask Him, the Most High, the Sublime and the Exalted, أن يوفقنا جميعا لما يحبه ويرضى, to give us the success and to divinely inspire us, to give us the divine inspiration to do that which Allah loves and that which Allah is pleased with, and to make us from Ahlul Hadith haqqan, ظاهرا وباطنا, inwardly and outwardly, and not just people who have beards, thobes, niqabs and gloves and kufis, but people who are actually trying to be upon the true way of Ahlul Hadith and Aqidah and Ibadah and Fiqh and Ilm, etc. Thank you very much for coming out, spending your time, sacrificing your energy, your wealth. Jazakumullahu khairan. Please, inshallah ta'ala, don't allow this Hadith al-Ujala to be the last time that you come across this book. Read the book yourselves. Perhaps someone will translate the book, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Hasbi an tala'tukum alayh. Inshallah, some of the mashayikh and tulaba, maybe they'll translate the book for you. Or maybe someone can give a longer class and a bigger conference on the book for you. Al-Muhim, I've poured a little bit into your cup. The rest of it is now upon you to fill, inshallah ta'ala. So don't allow this simple class to be the last time that you come across this book. But it needs more time, more explanation, more extraction, more thorough clarification on these points. هذه عجالة فقط. Simple, brief, 1-2 hit and miss type of thing. Jazakumullahu khairan. تفضل تفضل لا بأس.
Because everybody has some questions, inshallah, Allah Shaykh has a few questions really quickly. وإلا إن شاء الله we'll end the program. We have a question, Shaykh.
تفضل.
What's the first thing that will be created?
The first thing to be created? طيب. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد. Many scholars, they say the first thing that Allah made was the arsh. And others, they say it was the pen. And some scholars, they say, is that there are things that we know about. Al-ma'luma lana, that Allah made first. The hadith that says, إِنَّ أَوَّلْ مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ الْقَلَمْ قَالَ لَهُ اكْتُبْ. The very first thing that Allah made was the pen. And then Allah said to the pen, write. And the pen asked, what shall I write? And Allah instructed it to write down everything that's going to take place. Some of the scholars of Islam, they say that linguistically, this hadith is misunderstood. من حيث الإعراب. And الإعراب الصحيح أول ما خلق الله القلم بالنصب وليس أول ما خلق الله القلم بالرفع على الابتداء. They say that when Allah first created the pen, and not the first thing that Allah made was the pen. And this shows you the importance of the Arabic language. The importance of the Arabic language in your aqidah. At the end of the day, whether it was the throne or whether it was the pen, Allah is the Khalaqul Alim. He's the creator of everything, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahu khaliq kulli shay'in. He's the creator of all things. And there are certain things that are older than others, certain things that He gave precedence above others. Very simple and very easy. What's important is these different furu'at al-aqidah and these different furu'at al-iman. It's nothing wrong. لا بأس من يعني طرحها ومدارستها لكن التعمق فيها وما خاض فيها السلف يحذر يجتنب هذا الشيء. going too deep into them and discussing them that the pious predecessors never even talked about and spoke about. هذا كله من آثار الخلف. That's from what the later generations did. But of course, it's not wrong studying these things, but not going too deep into them. And Allah knows best. خيرا؟ نعم. تفضلي. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. من واحد لو سمحتوا عفوا. فهمتك. طيب جزاك الله خيرا. في الأصل أهل السنة أنصار حديث السلفيون في الأصل كلها يعني مترادفات في الأصل. أما الآن بين طلبة العلم والمشايخ والعلماء أنفسهم طبعا في تناحر شديد، بل في من يسمي نفسه بالسلفي. كم من فرق، هذا يبدل هذا ويحذر من هذا ويترك هذا ويضلل هذا، وكلهم يقولون نحن السلفيون، فضلا عن الذي يقول أنا مسلم، لا أنا على أهل السنة، لا بد تقول سلفي. الذين يقولون سلفي أنفسهم يتناحرون فيما بينهم، النحر. عرفت؟ فللأسف يعني كل هذه المصطلحات المفروض أن تكون دالة على معنى واحد، وهو اتباع الصحيح في العقيدة في الأعمال إلى آخره. أما الآن في الساحة الدعوية مثل ما ذكرتي، الواحد يقول أنا على منهج أهل السنة ويؤول الصفات، وآخر يقول أنا سلفي ويترك طلب العلم نهائيا. هذه مشكلة وهذه ظاهرة، وأنا أرى والله أعلم من أسباب القضاء على هذه المشاكل قراءة مثل هذه الكتب والرجوع إلى مثل هذه الكتب والرسائل. أنا أرى والله أعلم أن هذا من أسباب معالجة هذه المشاكل، مشاكل الدعوية وهذه الأشياء. نرجع إلى ما قاله السلف، ونرجع إلى ما قاله العلماء، ونرجع إلى ما قاله هؤلاء عن هذه المسائل. من أهل العلم من أجاز هذا، من العلماء من أجاز هذا، قال لا بأس أن الواحد ينتسب إلى السلف بهذا الانتساب، أجازه بعض العلماء. المهم المقصود أنك تكونين سلفية في الظاهر والباطن، تكوني سلفية في حجابك وفي أخلاقك وآدابك وفي تعلمك وتعليمك، تكون سلفية مع زوجك ومع أبنائك ومع أخواتك. هذا المقصود. سميت نفسك بالسلفية أم لا؟ سميت نفسك بالأثرية أم لا؟ قلت أنا مسلمة، أنا مؤمنة إن شاء الله، أنا الأسماء الفارغة. هذا الإشكال أن يكون يعني نتسمى بشيء داخل فارغ. أقول أنا سلفي، طيب إيش طلبت من العلم؟ أخلاقك، أعمالك، عباداتك، إنتاجك، إيش وين؟ طيب تفضل شكرا، نشوف يعني ممكن فارغ. هذا الإشكال، وما أكثره في هذا الزمان للأسف. وما أبرئ نفسي إن النفس لأمارة بالسوء والعياذ بالله. هذا الإشكال. نقول بالدعاوي الفارغة نحن سلفيون، نحن أهل السنة، نحن أهل الحديث، لكن في الداخل خاوي. هذا الإشكال والله أعلم. تفضل. questions regarding, or question says, I know it may not be ideal, but is it okay to seek knowledge from recordings and transcriptions and things like this, taking in mind the circumstances and the situation? There's nothing wrong with that. Rather, listen carefully, guys. If you're overseas in Medina, you should learn and study and take from recordings. Listen carefully. Anyone who's listening to my words, from Tulab al-Ilm, I'm your brother, and I only want to give you sincere advice. You're in the Prophet's city with the ulama. You should be listening to recordings day and night of mashayikh and ulama who are passed and died, and of mashayikh and ulama that are living. A student of knowledge takes everything. He takes from those who are living, he takes from the recordings, he takes from the books, and he does his own reading and research. Listen, combined. There is no one way. You go to Egypt, this is my sheikh, I'm in his camp, I read this book, I have this debate, I make this bath, I listen to this tape of this scholar who died before I even went to Egypt. Kullu shay. But if you don't have the ability to go overseas and have an actual living, walking, talking teacher, take from the recordings. And a person being a student of knowledge, as we have explained, it's not about what you wear or how you dress. It's not about how you dress. It's not about what you say, who knows you, what you look like. But it's about your mind. That's a talib al-ilm. How you look at life. I want to find the answer myself. I want to learn myself. 20 pages isn't enough. I need 200 pages to read. I can't put the book down. I want to learn. Let's debate on an issue. That's what we do in our free time. We don't play basketball, video games. We talk about مسائل العلم. طيب ايش عندك في هذا؟ تفضل اذكر يلا تعال. That's a student of knowledge. Even if you're in Minnesota, and there are people who go to Medina and they sleep a lot, eat a lot, laugh a lot, joke a lot, play around, and waste their time. And I know brothers who never ever had teachers or students of knowledge. But we're not talking about that as an asl, as a default. And we're trying to guide people and push people away from that. You only teach yourself if you don't have a teacher. You learn from recordings if you can't have a living, talking ustad. And last but not least, is that there are different aspects of knowledge. Certain things you don't necessarily need a teacher for. And other things you do. And certain times you combine and you mix. Clear? And Allah knows best. Now,
they all had different personalities and behaviors and different quirks. But Sahaba couldn't do. So when it comes to seeking knowledge and being a student, how do you balance that and holding yourself to that level, but also being yourself and having your personality?
Sorry. Question with regards to the Sahaba. They had different personalities. They had different traits, different strengths. However, kulluhum udul. All of them were acceptable. All of them were just and righteous, equitable, all of them. So how do you be a student of knowledge and keep your own personality, have your own style, so on and so forth? It's very simple. One of our principles and one of the founding or guiding principles of the HadithDisciple school of thought is to learn the form but seek the formless. Learn the usul, learn the qawaid, and then what you do later on is up to you. So let's take, for example, dress code. How do you stick to the rules but still be yourself? So many people, I go places, they say, why are you wearing this type of shirt? Are you doing karate? Are you doing kung fu? Are you from China? Are you from Japan? Or why are you wearing this? You look weird. Are you Bruce Lee? Wallahi, you'd be shocked, the amount of people. So a speaker who's sitting in front of the people, how should the speaker dress? Give me the principles that everyone can agree upon. The speaker should be what? Quickly. Clean. Qaida. He should be what? Clean. Not sitting in front of you with stains, smelling bad. Clean. That's the mutafaq alayha, sah? What else should the speaker should be? Covered. Ma'awra. And other than ma'awra should be covered. I shouldn't just sit in front of you wearing the minimum. Number 3, the speaker should be what? Presentable. We can agree or not? Neat. You shouldn't have wrinkled clothes. Wrinkle isn't dirt, right? My odor's covered, but my clothes are wrinkled. So that's not good, right? We can agree on that, correct? What else should the speaker have? If we're talking about both wash the clothes, me sitting in front of you. Huh? Clothes of the people. What's normal? That's interesting. What is normal? We're a thobe. Well, some people say a thobe isn't normal. I get what you're saying, but that's it's not normal to everybody. But for argument's sake, you shouldn't be weird and too peculiar in what you're wearing in general, right? But that's going to come back to bite you later on. What else should a speaker be upon with regards to his or her clothes? Huh? La. We're not talking about the makeup thing. We're talking about just clothes. All right, let's stick with those principles. So this shirt right here, regardless of what country it comes from or what it represents or what I'm doing, is it covering my odor? Is it clean? Is it presentable? Is it normal? Not necessarily. So therefore, I can wear whatever I want to wear. It's a reflection of my personality. This is what makes me feel comfortable. I feel at ease. I like the style. Blah, 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 etc. As long as it's kada, and kada. So that's you and your personality and seeking ilm. I like to talk standing up. I like to discuss this issue. I like to do classes sitting in a garden. I like to do classes on the street. I like whatever you want to do, as long as you don't go against the principles, the form. Your personal style is the formless. 50. So the companions, they were all students of the Prophet ﷺ, and they were all well-rounded. They had the usul without a question. And then there were certain things that they were stronger in. Like I said to the brothers and sisters last night, is that if sisters are all going overseas and coming back, you should focus on one field. And there's nothing wrong with you sticking to your personality. I don't have to be you. And we shouldn't be carbon copies of each other. Sheikh Abbas, lahu takhasus, or Sheikh Abu Talha, lahu takhasus. You, Abu Talha. You're looking around talking about you, ya akhi. You forgot last night in the hotel? كيف هذا يا أخي؟ صح؟ قال أبو طلحة صح؟ So the point is, sister, is that you keep your personality as long as your personality doesn't go against the Quran and the Sunnah. So you may have a personality which you're very friendly with people and you laugh a lot. As long as it isn't against the Quran and the Sunnah, not best. Talking to someone that you're not supposed to talk to, lying, laughing and hollering and crying out loud when you laugh, going beyond the usul. It's nothing wrong with being friendly and being cordial. And seeking knowledge and following the salaf, it does not mean that you have to be a robot or some type of mechanical machine. It doesn't mean that you don't have a personality. You look at the Sahaba and how they talked, how they dealt with each other. You look at the Aimma and how they were with each other. You understand this? So there's nothing wrong with that as long as it's within the boundaries of the agreed upon principles. Sure on that? And beware of people making you think that you have to be robotic. And you have to be some type of alien and talk in a different voice and a different accent. And you have to dress like this 100%. La. You can do whatever you want to do as long as it does not go against the agreed upon principles. Rather, we need diversity. And oftentimes, people will benefit and they'll learn more when they see you and they see your true personality. That's why people like to see interviews. And this is agreed upon in all fields, not just in Islam. An athlete, an actor, a musician, some celebrity, people, they love to see personal interviews. They want to see him outside of the camera. They want to see him off the court, off the field. They want to see how he is as a person, and they'll love that person more. When they see them, they say, wow, he was down to earth. He was cool. Oh, that's decent. And the same applies to ilm. People, they love to see people being themselves, as long as it's not what? Against the usul al-muttafaq alayha. Clear on that? Wallahu a'lam. Khayr inshallah, fadal.
What's the biggest fighting defeating the
I'll tell you, the biggest piece of advice with regards to defeating the shaitan and the whispers of the shaitan, first and foremost, is to know what shaitan is and to know what he isn't. Know who shaitan is and know who shaitan is not. Knowing yourself and knowing your enemy. That is the most important tool, and that's the initial tool. As we know this, he who knows himself and knows his enemy need not to fear the outcome of 1,000 battles. If you know your strengths and your weaknesses, and you know the strengths and the weaknesses of your enemy, you'll never be afraid of losing. You'll never lose. And that's because you know you're weak. You don't fight right now. And if I don't fight you, you can't what? You can't beat me. You understand? So you have to know your nafs as a person, as a Muslim, as a human being. What are the strengths of the human and what are the flaws and the weaknesses of a human? Secondly, you specifically as a person. I have sabr, alhamdulillah, I'll never drink alcohol. But gambling, I'm a little weak. It's a fitna when it comes to gambling. It's a fitna for me. Alcohol doesn't interest me. Gambling is a problem, right? So you have to know your strengths, and you have to know your weaknesses. And you have to know shaitan, his strengths and his weaknesses. He's a deceiver, a trickster, gharur. He yuwaswis. He whispers and he withdraws. وَكَانَ الشَّيْطَانُ الْإِنسَانِ خَذُولًا. He forsakes you when you need him. And you also know that the shaitan is indicated. Shaitan كَانَ ضَعِيفًا. وَمَا كَانَ لِي عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ إِلَّا أَنْ دَعَوْتُكُمْ فَاسْتَجَبْتُمْ لِي. He says, the only power I had over you is that I whispered, I called, and you answered me. So reading the Quran shows you what the shaitan has the ability to do. He has the ability to do certain things, no doubt, you gotta know that. And the shaitan doesn't have the ability to do other things. So you realize that the shaitan, you can't hurt me, you can't harm me. But in this issue, you may be able to. So you gotta know your strengths and your weaknesses. You have to know the strengths and the weaknesses of your enemy. And you know that if you don't have the thick skin, stay away from the battle. Don't get on the battlefield. Don't even fight that fight. Don't go near the casino if you have a problem with gambling. Stay away from it. You understand? You don't say, well, I want to walk by the casino to show that I'm strong. Abadan, nah. So you have to know yourself, and you have to know what you're up against. This is one of the most important tools of getting out of these whispers. Another very important piece of advice is never to have free time and idle time. Brothers, they ask me, why do you travel so much? Why do you do so many classes? You need to rest. Take a break, yahi. Relax, you're going to kill yourself. That sounds good to you. But what happens when I remain idle? What happens when I sit still? What happens when I'm not moving about? And our grandmothers and uncles and aunts that weren't Muslim, was not like Somalis. Your father's a Muslim, grandfather's a Muslim. My grandmother was a kafir. Great-grandmother was a kafir. They came from down south. They were Christians. They weren't upon Tawheed in Islam. But they gave us many pieces of advice that was solid. And from the piece of advice that I think every American, we're talking about our culture, black Americans can relate to. And your grandmother, she would tell you that an idle mind is a devil's workshop. An idle mind is a devil's workshop. An idle mind is the devil's workshop. Al-faragh. You have nothing to do. The shaitan will pick you apart. So when it comes to sitting down, being bored, not having anything to do, not staying busy, not having no career, not having no hobbies, not having no good friends, the shaitan will get into his workshop. You understand this wisdom? This wisdom from non-Muslims now. This is hikmah, there's no doubt about that. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala, he says, إِنِّي أَكْرَهُ أَنْ أَرَى الرَّجُلَ فَارِغًا لا يشتغل بشيء من الدين ولا من الدنيا أو كما قال رضي الله عنه. He says, I hate to see a man doing nothing. He isn't busy with religion or with his worldly life. So oftentimes the shaitan whispers, and those whispers, they have an effect and an impact on you because you have nothing else to do. So when it comes to overcoming an addiction, or some type of abuse of a substance, or some type of problem, one of the most important keys is to stay busy and never ever stop doing something positive. Deen or dunya. Deen or what? Or dunya. If you're not seeking knowledge, go to the gym. Play basketball. Do something. Learn something. Benefit something. Build something. Make some money. Stack money. Do something. Don't just sit around wasting your time. And that's because when you're standing still, you're an easy target. So you have to be mindful of these points. You have to have good company. Suhbah hasana. And most importantly is al-isti'adatu billah wal-i'radu an hadhihi al-wasawis. فَلْيَسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ وَلْيَنْتَهِي. Seek refuge in Allah whenever it comes to you and stop. Don't feed into him. Don't listen to him. Don't lend your ear to those whispers. Even if it hurts and even if it's hard, but you have to struggle. You have to struggle. And Allah knows best. Khair inshallah. Sallallahu sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulihi Muhammad. Maybe we'll take one from online. Mushkila? We'll take a question from online inshallah. Uh-oh. We have a question, from Somaliland. Hargeisa. Somaliland. What is upon us Muslims who have citizenship of non-Muslim countries? Yani, if you have citizenship from a non-Muslim country, what is upon you? Let's not get into the ruling of having a citizenship from a non-Muslim country, because that's a mushkila, yani, udma. Al-Muhim, if you're living in a non-Muslim country, try your best to be the best Muslim that you possibly can. Try your best to be the best citizen of that country that you possibly can. Be a role model and be someone who shatters stereotypes. Shatter the stereotype. All immigrants are like this. All Muslims from this country are like that. You should make it your goal not to break that stereotype, but to what? Tahtim, to shatter it, smash it, and be a good example for the Muslims. The Muslims are the best athletes. How many people accepted Islam through Muhammad Ali? Sheikh, how many people? When he knocked out George Foreman in the 8th round, rope-a-doped him. What did he say? Allah. No matter what he was on, but it was the concept of Islam. And he kept trying to change the subject. How did you knock him out? How did you beat him with strategy? And he took the bottle of water and he kept praising and thanking Allah. Look at the interview. Go back to the interview. They kept trying to get away from it, and he kept, Yurakis. No. I knocked out George Foreman because Allah allowed me to knock him out. How many people do you think became a Muslim from that? Showing that being a good athlete, and obviously we talk about athletes, and it's easy for people to scorn athletes, especially if you're not athletic. Oh, it's important to be smart. Oh, you're just an athlete. Oh, you just play basketball. You just make money. That's easy for you to say, but you're not in the gym for 10 hours. You're not running until your legs feel like lead. You're not watching the tape or studying the tape until your eyes burn. You don't know the pain and the agony of being a champion athlete, let alone a boxer. So it's easy for you to say that it's, nothing. It's easy for you to say, but you're not torturing yourself like this athlete is torturing himself. So therefore, from the ways of making da'wah to Allah and being a good Muslim and perhaps lessening the issue of being in a non-Muslim country, in a non-Muslim citizenship, is representing Islam in all that you do, even as an athlete. The best is the Muslim on the court. That's right. And I'm a Muslim. That's right. I'm the best. The best. Everyone understands? Excellence in everything that you do. That's my advice. Living in a non-Muslim country is to represent Islam in every single thing that you do. Manifest the teachings of the Prophet in everything that you do. And bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, hopefully, things will be better for you. And Allah surely knows best. There are other discussions. Al-wala' wal-bara', joining the army, many issues, paying taxes, many issues being buried in a non-Muslim graveyard. There are many problems and issues that come from being in that country. Wala hawla wala quwwata illa billah. Question says, UK, from Durham, North Carolina. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. May Allah bless you. Do you know any Islamic institutes in the U.S. with a correct minhaj? What is the ruling on a menstruating woman having fake nails or nail polish? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah bless you. As far as institutions in the United States that have a correct minhaj, as we mentioned in the book. use those principles and you decipher what institution is on the correct way and the incorrect way. If I say this one and that one, what will happen? We'll get into ta'ifiyya. We'll restrict things. The Prophet ﷺ was asked, Hadith says, إِنَّا قَوْمٌ نَرْكَبُ الْبَحْرَ وَنَحْمِلُ مَعَنَا الْقَلِيلَ مِنَ الْمَاءِ فَإِنْ تَوَضَّعْنَا بِهِ عَطِشْنَا أَفَنَتَوَضَّأُ مَاءِ الْبَحْرِ. It says we are travelers by sea. We're seamen. We're always traveling on the water. And of course, we only have a little bit of fresh water with us. If we use the fresh water, meaning from the wells, to make wudu, to make ghusl, we won't have anything to drink because we can't drink seawater. Can we make wudu with the seawater, O Messenger of Allah? The Prophet ﷺ said, هُوَ الطَّهُورُ مَاؤُهُ الْحِلُّ مَيْتَتُهُ. He says that the seawater is clean and pure, and its dead game is lawful to eat. If the Prophet ﷺ would have said, Naam, if he would have said, yes, you can make wudu with seawater, then the ruling would have become what? Huh? خاص ومحدد في حالة إيش؟ الضرورة. If the Prophet said, yes, you can make wudu with seawater, then the person would understand you can only make wudu with seawater because of necessity. And the Prophet did not answer the question like that. He said its water is clean, meaning you can use the seawater anytime and any place. With an abundance of fresh water, هو الطهور ماؤه. So therefore, if I say study with this institute, study with this brother, go here, what am I doing now? خليك عن التحزب والطائفية بس أنا إيش؟ تضييق. And I'm giving you the general principle. Learn from those who have these principles that we've mentioned, and there lies no doubt. Transparency is there. Brothers who have studied, sisters who have studied, who have learned, and who are propagating the proper way is crystal clear. قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ. It's no ambiguity. It's no confusion. People say, I'm confused. That's because you want to be confused. It's crystal clear. The people who have the ilm and akhlaq and the correct aqidah, kishams. Clear as day. But you have to use your mind a bit and use these principles a bit. Everyone understand this? As far as the second part of the question, with regards to having fake nails or nail polish, then if you're menstruated, obviously you don't have to make wudu, and you can wear nail polish. However, if you're going to wear nail polish, then you have to wear gloves. If you're going to have your hands out, your hands cannot have zina on them. If you have henna, you have to wear gloves if you want to wear henna in front of non-mahram men. Everyone understand this? As far as fake nails, then I wouldn't advise you to wear fake nails. I wouldn't advise you to wear fake nails, even if you're menstruating. I wouldn't advise you to do that. Wallahu a'lam. Questions from Muhammad Salah, from Farwani, Kuwait. Is the hadith, one who prays Fajr in congregation for 40 days continuously will be free from fire and free from hypocrisy? Is it sahih? Jazakallahu khairan. Wa jazak. Many of the ulama of Islam, they say this hadith is authentic. يحسنونه. They say it's thabit. At the end of the day, معناه صحيح بلا ريب وبلا شك. How can a person go to the masjid for Salat al-Fajr for 40 days consistently when it's cold outside, when it's dark outside, when not that many people are there, and his heart is full of nifaq? من صلى البردين دخل الجنة. بشر المشائين إلى المساجد في الظلم بالنور التام يوم القيامة أو كما جاء. أحاديث تدل وتشهد لصحة معنى هذه الرواية. So the concept of لا يحافظ على الوضوء إلا, no one will strictly guard his wudu unless he's a what? A believer. لأن في المحافظة مراقبة. هل أنا محدث ولا متوضئ؟ أسألك. تعرف أم لا؟ مستحيل. تعرف محدث ولا متوضئ أنا؟ هل أنا الجنب؟ هل تعرف صليت معكم ولا لا؟ كيف أنت تعرف؟ هذه بيني وبين من؟ ربي عز وجل، لا أحد يطلع عليه. عرفت كيف؟ فالمحافظة على الوضوء يدل على إيش؟ المراقبة، أنك تراقب الله عز وجل. فكذلك المحافظة على هذه الصلاة في هذا الوقت You do know that shit. So bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, praying in the masjid for all of those days consistently, and then protecting you from the fire, and protecting you from hypocrisy, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, that's a valid meaning. And just think about 40 days straight. That's consistency. And consistency is only based off of true desire. Everyone understand this? People stop, people start. Because they don't have the true desire. Wallahu alam. Next question says, MR. Antaina? Khalas. Sorry guys, we run out of time. Inshallah ta'ala later on. Jazakumullahu khairan. Abbas.